We're doing marketing technology today, and it's probably the last time we surveyed associations, it was probably right behind the enterprise-wide system, be it an AMS or a customer data platform, the most used technology in associations, or at least the one that associations spent the most money on. So consider that when you think about it, but also consider a couple of other things. Um, when you think about your relationship with your members, excuse me, two things I want you to consider. You've got customers and you've got members, and sometimes they're the same thing, sometimes they're not the same thing. If your marketing technology is working the way it definitely should be working, you'll be able to distinguish between who's a customer, who's a repeat buyer or a member, and what their journey is and how it differs from what customers' journeys typically are. Here's some core factors I think you need to consider. Make sure that when you start off thinking about your excuse me, your marketing tech, that you think about your organization's mission. What are you actually trying to accomplish with this piece of technology? Two, make sure you consider all the other pieces of technology in your ecosystem that this needs to be connected with. Does it need to be connected to your AMS? Does it need to be connected to your learning management system? Does it need to be connected to your community software? So be concerned about those integrations between tools. Consider the user experience. Oftentimes when we choose software, we consider the member experience or people using things from the outside. What about your staff's experience in using this technology? Is it easy for them? Is it understandable for them as they're going about doing their work? Also, obviously, you got to consider pricing. A lot of the marketing technologies have different add-ons that you can buy that augment a particular piece of software. Oftentimes, there's tiers of usage based on when you consider price based on how much you use it or how much space you take up in their particular environment. That's also something that you should be concerned about. What features do they have in there? Do they have ways to automate certain marketing workflows that you're going to have? Do they have analytics to help you understand how effective your marketing is, that sort of thing? Can you segment your user data, your customer database in ways that make sense according to what your business plans are? So just consider some of those things as you're going along. That I think if you were to ask me what were the two most important things, I would say integrations is a really important thing, how it integrates with other tools that you use in your ecosystem, and the user interfaces that your marketing team has to use to get their work done. I would say those are probably the two most important things, at least from my perspective. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to Joe Kepley of Blend Interactive. I think his colleague Taylor is there to be answering questions in the chat as we make our way through the session here. And so with that, Joe, I'm going to turn it over to you, sir.
Great. Well, good morning, everybody. Glad to be here and appreciate you joining us early this morning. Yeah, a lot of what Reggie covered there was, I think, a great lead into a lot of what we're going to talk about, particularly around, how things connect together and how can you use those tools. So for those of you who may not be familiar with this, my name's Joe Kepley. I'm the CTO of a company called Blend Interactive. And joining me this morning, helping with the chat and kind of engaging everybody, answering your questions, is my associate Taylor, and we're very excited to see everyone this morning. A little bit about Blend. We are located in the great metropolis of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, right here in the middle of the U.S. We are a company of about 24 folks. We've been doing this for about 20 years. And really our focus has traditionally been on content management. But, as we work with more parts of the MarTech stack and integrate AI, that's really been even more of our focus is how do we enable teams to use AI and use it well. And that's what we want to talk about this morning. And that's really what we do is we guide teams through complex problems with content web. We love working with associations because associations have those complex problems. You are serving a number of different audiences in terms of different types of members and non-members. How do you attract new members while still, providing value to non-members and making sure that your members stay engaged. So all of these things that we love to help with. So a lot of people have kind of struggled. Okay, how do we work AI into our jobs? And I want you to think about your daily routine and how you do your work. So I know I get into a situation where I'm trying to get some tasks done, some high level tasks that I should be focused on. But in order to do that, there's some other piece of thing I have to do. And then I get something else that comes in and I have to deal with that and probably do something else. And pretty soon I'm 4 or 5 problems removed from the thing I was supposed to be focusing on. That's my goal for the day, right? So the technical term for this is context switching, or I've heard an interrupt cascade, where you can't do what you need to do to get the thing done that you're trying to get done because you got to do the other thing, right? So those are the technical terms for it. I think the more common way to think about it is you spend your day playing whack-a-mole. And so this is where I think there's really a value as to how we look at AI. And we've talked about AI enablement in terms of tools, in terms of product. But today I want to think about it differently. And I'd like us to look at it not in terms of thinking about what is this product and how do we add automations, but think about it like, if I could expand my team, how would I hire? So if I were to want to avoid all those distractions, all those things I have to do during the day, just to focus on the things that I'm supposed to be doing, my best and highest use for me and for all of my team members, how do I go about that? Well, I would probably hire somebody to help handle a lot of those other things. And usually I don't have the budget or the manpower overhead to do that, which is why things are the way they are, right? But this is where there are a lot of tasks that kind of fall into one or two categories. Either it's, hey, this is something an intern could do, or this is maybe something I would love to have an expert that is able to do this, but I just don't have one. So as we're going through today, like if this resonates with you and you want to just maybe put in the chat, like, what are the things in your job that, like, man, I wish we could just get somebody to handle that and to do that. Like, post those in the chat and let's talk about them, because there are a lot of things that we can actually use AI to cover some of those. So, I want to think about like an org chart for a small marketing department for an association. We probably have a director that's doing leadership and strategy, digital marketing coordinator. That kind of is often a catch-all for, like, this person handles all the technical stuff, right? They run the website, they do the analytics, they post the socials, whatever. Maybe I have a communications manager that's really my expert content creator. He's doing the authoring, editing, or more likely working with other people in the association, with other subject matter experts, to get those things ready for the web, to cover voice and tone, et cetera. And then I probably have a graphic designer that is deciding what our brand style is, make sure everything that we produce looks like us, and also has to do assets, like, for instance, little headshots for somebody's slide for a demo, right? So this is the type of thing that, these are ad hoc things that pop up. And as we look at this org chart and these job descriptions, you can really go through and highlight, there are things in here where AI can help and make this faster. And we're going to look at some examples of those in a minute. And then there are things in here where AI can even just do a portion of that job. And so we can essentially take our team and expand it with a set of AI agents. So this allows us to then say, okay, we want to take these people that are our experts, and, they have a best and highest use that is the best use of their time. My director of marketing should be focusing on leadership and setting the strategy. My my marketing coordinator should be focusing on being creative. My communications manager should be writing great content for us. So these other things are really distractions from that best and highest use. And how can we make those things faster and more productive? And so that's where the idea of having these agents comes in. And I want to talk a little bit about strategy on this, because all of these obviously are powered by, an AI engine behind the scene, what we call a large language model or an LLM. And a lot of different companies right now are taking different strategies on how to build these and how to approach providing this. And usually, like across the industry, a lot of what it looks like is that they're going to put this in some type of DXP product, and that is going to then be something that they wrap inside of their DXP product and get you to subscribe to. Now, behind the scenes, they're probably running Gemini or Claude or OpenAI or something and charging you a premium for these agents that they put on top of that. And this, is a great tie into exactly what Reggie was talking about, well, we have all these things that we want to connect to these systems, and how do all these things connect together? Because really, these systems are only effective if they can work with the things we have. So, if I want to use my AMS, if I want to use my email marketing platform, my LMS, whatever, my financial system, any of it, I have to then have a connector with this. And if I'm using one of these DXP tools, now I'm also then, paying that vendor to help me connect these things together. And I'm not saying that that's not worth it. There may very well be a big value to connecting all this and, getting this work done. And when you're using one of these vendors' AI models, they've already done some of the legwork for you. And so you're paying a premium, but you have a quicker time to market to get these tools up and running. Now, over the long term, the total cost of ownership is probably more than doing it yourself. And when you get behind the scenes, and what we found with Blend is like, there's really not any magic to doing this yourself. And so one of the things that reasons we really like working with the folks over at Umbraco, who is the tool we'll be running through today, or at least part of it is Umbraco, is that they've actually taken a different approach to this, where most of our DXP partners have said, like, we're creating an AI for you, and then we want you to connect everything to us. Umbraco has said, you can use any AI you want, and you bring your own AI to the table, or even like if you have multiple AIs that are good at different things, you can use them all. And so we're going to make our system connect to your AI really well. And that I think is a nice approach that lowers the total cost of ownership over time. So just something to think about as as everybody's kind of flooding the market with these tools, is that you are paying for them, you're paying a premium for them, and you probably want to have a strategy long term for, like, if we are using Claude for everything else, can we use Claude over here? Or if we're really set on ChatGPT, can we use it across the board? Because those models are going to develop faster than some vendor specified model that's using a certain version of that and then trying to maximize the margin on it. So just something to think about as we're going through this. But today, what I really want to do is just take a look at some of those job descriptions we had and go through a few examples of, okay, well, how can we use AI in the situation and be helpful? And I'll try to do all these with live demos, just in case. I do have screen recordings and everything, but we'll try to do everything live if we can. So the first thing I want to look at is that idea of strategy. So as a marketing team, you have a limited amount of time. You can produce a limited number of assets with the people you have. And so you really want to produce the content that is going to best engage your members, best reach new members. And a lot of that involves looking at, okay, well, how is the content we're working with now performing? And I think this is a great place where an LLM tool can help. And so if we have an analytics expert agent that we can connect to our Google Analytics, we can just work with them and ask them some of these questions. So if I were to pop over to Slack, we have internally at Blend one of these agents that is tied in through Claude. We named it Bud. It doesn't matter, but we can essentially just chat with this agent and have a discussion about how things are going. So if I wanted to look at our analytics, I can say, based on Blend's recent analytics, what topics have been driving the most engagements from our users. So I'm going to ask that of Bud, and then it's going to go out, and hopefully, if everything's working this morning, we should get a response. And there we go. So this reached out into our Google Analytics, and we don't have an analytics expert on staff. So that falls on Taylor and I and some other folks in the company to kind of build reports. And when we're sitting down and coming up with what kind of content should we be writing, these were the types of things we would go after. But this would usually take us a pretty long time to go through and say, okay, well, Google Analytics is going to tell us all of the pages that were popular, and we can break that down and slice it up. But then we would have to kind of like work out, okay, based on those pages, what are the topics? What are the threads we're seeing? And so what our analytics agent has done is said, okay, wow, your thoughts section, which is our blog on our website, is doing very well. Here are some of the articles that saw some engagement. And then here are kind of some second ones. And then say, okay, here, key takeaways. Here are the themes of those articles, the topics that seem to be resonating with people. We've obviously done a lot of things on AI and search lately. Those seem to be getting a lot of engagement. Our developers write deep dives on the platforms we work with, and those are helpful for other developers, so those get engagement. And we've written a couple articles in healthcare that are doing well. So it's saying like those are working above average in terms of session duration. Those are articles where people are engaging with our long-form content. So that gives us a very clear indicator that if those are things we want to maybe dig into, those are valuable things on our editorial calendar, where some of the other stuff we've written lately has maybe not engaged as much. So the nice thing about this too is that we just have this and can just ask it questions. So rather than saying, okay, I'm going to go Google Analytics and figure out how to run a report, I can go and ask the AI agent a question about our Google Analytics kind of at any time. And then we also have it proactively, I think once a month now, drop into our sales channel. Hey, here's like an overall summary of how the last month went. So essentially, like all of the things we would have an analytics expert do for us, this agent is doing for us, and adding sort of a virtual team member that's helping us out. So obviously, another thing we do a lot of, and particularly within an association, is a lot of content authoring. So there's a lot of subject matter experts. Those folks are working with with our marketing team, and so there's a lot of times an approval process that happens, but typically what that comes down to for most organizations is there's a very small team of folks that actually know how to run things on the website. And then their SMEs are somehow submitting those things to them. And if you're very figured out, you maybe have like a content marketing platform that is like kind of like using like a ticket and workflow process to do that. Most organizations, honestly, are still putting things in Word and dropping them in email or chat. And then the digital marketing person is then taking those things out of that Word document, making sure they match voice and tone and all of that, and then putting it on the website. And then they also have to figure out things like, okay, for SEO, what am I adding to this? So really, like, that is not maybe the best use of our digital marketing coordinator or communication manager's time. They obviously need to look at those things and approve them, but really the barrier there is that they're the only ones that know how to use the website, which we can now get around by saying, like, we're going to have essentially like a website admin agent that will help these folks and make better use of their time. So one of the ways we've tackled this is I have set up a folder in Google Drive. And all of my folks know how to use Google Drive. That is not, anything new. And basically saying, this is the folder where we're going to put blog post submissions. And so I will just grab an article here. I'm going to say I need a new Google Doc. And I'm just going to fill in just a straight article, nothing special. This is why dogs love walks. And now I'm going to add that to Google Drive. And what we'll find is that in a second here, we have our website agent just watch that drive folder. And when it sees a new article comes in, what it does is it looks at the article, figures out what needs to happen with it, and then it takes that article and it also produces all of the things that we need to go with it, like a summary, like a description, like all of the pieces that weren't there. I'm not seeing a new thing come in. So rather than waiting, I'll go back to a demo I did yesterday, where basically it takes that article and says, okay, I'm going to give it a title. I'm going to give it a subtitle, a summary. Here's the meta description we're going to use for search. And then here's the text of the article. So this just then slacks my, my digital marketing coordinator or my communications manager, or whoever's going to approve these articles, and says, hey, here's what I've got. Does this look good? And right here from Slack, I can say, yeah, it looks good. I want that on the website. And then if I go back to my, if I log into my content management system now, I should see now that article is in there. And so my subject matter expert never had to interact with the website. My content or my comms manager still got to approve the article. They can still edit it, so we can put it out here as a draft and they can come in and make edits to it if they want. But they got to approve it or decline it right from Slack. So this wasn't like a big interruption of their day. They didn't have any extra work to do. So we've really streamlined this process of getting information from our SMEs and getting more content onto the website. And also getting all of the things that, like, you know, maybe my comms manager is not an expert in SEO, but we've had the system now give us some good SEO starting points to work with so that we can get that online. So I want to give you one more example, and these are like a limited set of examples. Like, obviously we can take a look at, you know, of all of the job roles, all the job descriptions, like go through those and say, here are ways we can speed that up, make that easier, and have our people focus on the most creative and impactful parts of their job. But the last thing I want to look at here is the idea of content optimization. So typically my digital marketing coordinator has to, over time, take care to make sure my content does well in terms of SEO. Increasingly now we're thinking about GEO in terms of how does AI pick up and use our content. The things we can do with that are to make improvements to the articles over time. So if we take a look at that, Umbraco now has a feature where we can actually work with the AI in Umbraco. And again, Umbraco is not bringing their own AI. So this is not the case where they have said that, you know, okay, well, you have to use our AI and you're going to pay a subscription for it. We're able to use Claude, ChatGPT, really any of the major LLM models, or even multiples, and plug them right into the system. So this is not something that we look at day to day, but this is what our admin sees, that I've got both Claude and OpenAI plugged in here. And then I have set up different agents. So I have set up an assistant editor that is going to give us guidance on how we edit. And I've also set a technical SEO expert for somebody to look at our articles and say, okay, from a an SEO, GEO, accessibility perspective, are we doing the right things? And what that will allow us to do is a couple of things. So along with any the fields on my website now, I can add prompts that are like canned prompts that I can run with the AI. So in this case, I haven't written a summary for this article. So I've asked the AI to basically say, come up with a summary for me. And it gave me a couple of options. One is a more punchy one is a more informative one. I pick what I want and I can just add that into the system there. So it's very easy to work with. The other thing I have is a co-pilot. And you can see on the side here, I have essentially a chat. So I bring up my technical SEO expert agent and basically say, hey, anything you can recommend on this article. And it provides a list of guidance items on that. So if we look at these, one of the things I did on this article is I titled the article Top 5 Laser Pointers. But then I only in the copy wrote 3 products and it got mad at me for that. It's just like, hey, that's not right. Also, I was pretty vague on some of the meta titles and other things. So it has suggestions for all of these that, you know, okay, well, I've kind of punched up your SEO work. And then it says, would you like me to go ahead and change some of these for you? And I just say, yeah, go ahead and set that meta description for me. And I give it approval to do that work. And it's checked and it fits the right size and kind of the SEO recommendations. And you can see that that field's now filled out. So really very straightforward, very approachable. But that's kind of how I want us to think about AI and making changes going forward. Is really, what are the job roles that we have that can be enhanced, improved by essentially automation? And how can we spend less time doing the parts of our job that aren't impactful and provide more time to do the parts that are? So that's a quick way to think about AI. And I think, you know, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to step through the admin here that we looked at and kind of show some more pieces. Alexander asked, what about dynamic content? Definitely can do that. I don't have that in this demo, but typically approach that from a means of personalization. So, you know, you may have different like levels of membership or versus members and non-members. We can actually use personalization to drive like different content. So like when a member is logged into the site, having different content on the homepage versus when they're not. But I don't have that demo ready today, but we've definitely done that on previous demos, and I can make sure we get that over to you.
Hey, Joe, I had a question. During the process, you showed us some agents that were set up. Were those agents set up in Umbraco, or were they set up using some other tool?
So it's a combination. We can definitely set them up in Umbraco. So if I pull up my list of agents here, so my technical SEO expert, we have powered this with Claude because that's the system we like. We've also given it a context, and what that context is we can feed things into what does our agent need to know about us. So, you know, it needs to know that we're a certain type of association. So if I look at my content setup here, I have a brand voice, and you know, this is this website we're demoing. We have a demo website. I think some of you have seen it, the American Dog and Cat Association, which is dogs and cats, right? So it says that your target audience is the marketers and web editors for the American Dog and Cat Association. This is what that is. Don't use jargon, cite your sources. So like, this is how we want the agent to behave. I've set it to be friendly and familiar. Our head of content strategy actually likes to tell it to be a little bit rude if he's getting things wrong, because he's found that, you know, these things are so like people pleasy that he said, you know, hey, be a bit of a butthead if you think I need that, we basically said that you're a technical SEO and GEO expert. You're focused on accessibility, GEO, and SEO, which is why when I said any suggestions, it gave me suggestions along those lines. So, and this is a pretty basic example, but what you find is over time, as you work with these agents, you can find things to say like, I'd like it to do a little more of this. And it also builds a memory of this is the way you like to work. And so it's obviously not as good as a human being, but for some of these things that you maybe didn't have a resource for before, this is a resource that you can get when you maybe couldn't get a human being to fill that role. So in this case, we're using Umbraco for this. For the some of the outside things, so there's situations where I need it to either like do something like watch a folder for me, or I need it to respond in chat. We work with a system called Nodemation that lets us basically build those workflow automations. So this is kind of where we come in and provide value, is we have people that know how to do this. But we can say, okay, here's our agent. Here are the tools we're going to let it work with. It's going to work off of, again, Claude in our case. It's going to have a memory of what we talked about. So if I go back and say like, hey, do that again, it knows what that means. And then here are all the things that I allow it to do. I allow it to see the history in the Slack channel that we're talking about. I allow it to access our Google Analytics, Wikipedia, and search. And what that means is that I can either do what I showed you today, which is talk to it directly, or in some of our like departmental channels, we have the option to just like, it's in the channel and it acts as a participant. So, that's why we gave it a name and a persona is, if we're talking in sales and we have a question like, hey, Bud, how are those articles doing that we published last week? It has access to that and will respond in the channel for everybody to see.
Good. Thank you. So one other question kind of thing. We'll during the course of the day, we're going to see some product companies that have a specific product that they're trying to sell. We'll see some organizations that I would best describe as consultancies, that where you come in and you help people think through what their strategy is, help them set up tools to automate what they're trying to do, et cetera. So where do you guys fall in terms of, if I were to ask you to describe what kind of a company you are?
Yeah, we're definitely more on the consultancy side. We have been, like I said, pretty focused on the web and content marketing side. But increasingly what we found is like the teams we talk to where they really need help is like, there's so much going on with AI. How do we get our hands around it?
Absolutely.
Again, this is, I think, where we've got this idea of like, so many organizations are coming with like, well, here's the product. And, we've taken essentially, what I just showed there of like, we've taken an LLM, given it some prompts and given it some tools and said, now here, this is ready to go for you out of the box, which is true. And like, I'm not disparaging that as an approach. That gets you to market very quickly. It gets you up and running with those tools very quickly. But typically what you find is the challenge is going to be as you connect that to other parts of the organization, like the more you can allow that tool to see and do and have access to, the more value it can provide. For example, if I say that I hook our HubSpot in and our Google Analytics into the same LLM, it can access them both and cross-reference them and do more for me. So that is where we think we can provide value and be helpful. Is less on like, we have some tools we work with, but we'll work with really almost any suite of tools. And our goal is to come in and say, okay, where are you at in kind of this, like, you can think of it as like an AI maturity model of like, we're not doing anything or we're very advanced with it. But like, let's look at what you're doing now and say, where can we help? Where can we get you more focused on the things that you'd like to be doing instead of the grunt work?
Got it. It makes sense. Makes perfect sense. I think that approach is really helpful because there'd be organizations who have already invested in marketing technology and are wondering, how come I can't get to the next step of what I need to do? And I think, you guys can come in there and say, okay, based on what your mission is, based on what you've told me you're trying to achieve, here's where we can add value to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you're seeing so much of is, again, this is kind of a new battlefield for who's going to own the center of the universe, right? With it used to be like, well, the website's the center of everything, and we publish out of that. This create once, publish everywhere idea. And now it's increasingly the AI. So companies are saying, let us give you this AI, and then you're going to plug everything into that. And now we're the center of the universe. And where we think we can be helpful is working with teams to say, like, well, you probably want to own the center of that universe, and here's how we can hook together. And there are a lot of tools. There's this idea of, there's a concept called MCP, Model Context Protocol, that it's very technical, but it's the idea of like essentially giving your product a USB port that an AI can plug into and work with it. And a lot of organizations have done that. A lot of marketing systems, CMS systems. So now those can be automated by an outside AI. But there's still a lot of these that are selling their own AI. They're saying, well, we're not going to do that because, we want to own that. So there's a lot of stuff going on right now. And that's where we just hope to provide clarity for some of the folks we work with.
I was in and if anybody has any other kind of questions, feel free to put them in the chat here while Joe and I have this conversation. I was at a session yesterday where we were discussing the future of the web, given all these AI tools and et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things I just reminded us to think about was the websites were a point in time. And at the time that they were developed, they were the best way of getting information into people's hands. And we all became used to how we do websites and what their usage was. And so one of the people in the audience asked a question that I hadn't considered a whole lot, but I'm thinking about is, in the future, will websites still be the main way we communicate with our members? And I didn't have a good answer. I think that's something to ponder over time, quite honestly. But I'm also just reminded of the fact that what our job is to get the right information to the right people when they need it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a website, but sometimes that's something else. Sometimes that's knowing enough about your population of people and what their needs are, and what times they may need this particular knowledge that they're trying to get from you, and getting that to them then. And so that requires a lot more sophistication, I think, than somebody coming to a website and searching and hoping that they find something. And we now have the tools to take advantage of things that we didn't have years ago.
Yeah, and I think it's also a question of like, when your website is your main point, like somebody comes to you, they do a search, they land on your website. Now you're in control of the messaging and the brand experience. And increasingly what we're seeing is folks are interacting with chatbots that are running a query, going to all 10 of those websites that come up and giving a result out of that, which is why this idea of like search or GEO or generative engine optimization is kind of big now. But in the end, you're exactly right that we're still trying to provide the best information. And as long as we're doing that, we're going to serve our members. And, I think back to, I'm old enough to remember before the web was big, when I was in high school. Yeah, I know. Don't tell them. But like if I wanted something, a piece of information, I would call a customer service agent, a travel agent. And, we went into the web where everything is self-serve essentially now. But, we're sort of moving back to this idea of an agent, except the agent is no longer a human being. So it's kind of one of those everything old is new again, but we still are able to serve and work with that content, provide that information,
that's
provide value.
Such a good example, Joe, because what we hoped in that example that you gave, somebody would call up and a conversation was had about what I need, when I need it, what context I need it in, what I'm trying to get done. And you can create agents that simulate that conversation with somebody in ways that allows you to hit the mark a lot more often than you can with just a website.
Yeah.
And so just be thoughtful about this, folks, as you're thinking through, what that experience, what experience you're trying to craft for your members. We used to have a knowledge center that was staffed by 4 or 5 people at one particular time. Somebody would call up, have a very specific question, and the knowledge center staff had knowledge of all of our publications and et cetera, and they would be able to, based on that, answer questions really specifically. Now we have a large language model that has all of our, or I don't say all of it, but most of our content in, and somebody can go to that large language model and simulate asking those questions and get a more direct answer. But think if you had agents, and Joe, help me with this conversation, that were monitoring questions that people ask at the website, questions that people ask in your social media platform, and then be able to respond in ways that become more useful to your members.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I mean, we don't have it in this demo, but we have a number of folks using, we showed essentially AI agents for helping with workflow, but AI agents helping with member engagement and answering those questions is definitely a thing. We have another association we work with that is an association of aircraft owners. And they own kind of a specific, fairly vintage aircraft. So it's kind of like the knowledge is there for all of these different engines and parts and how these things need to be maintained. But they basically have a couple of guys that are on staff that have been doing this forever. And they can only answer so many questions.
Right.
And so now what we're working with them on is loading all of their technical manuals and all of these things into this live agent so that, as a member, I can go on and just say hey, how do I install a GPS unit in this, particularly, this type of aircraft from this model year and things like that. And that agent can go and build that summary and build that advice just as the mechanic did. The nice part about that is that there's governance controls on all these as well, because obviously you don't want to mess up maintenance on an aircraft.
Right.
And so they're able to put guardrails in place and also have those actual experts review what the agent system has been telling people to make sure that it's giving them the right advice and they can continue to tune that over time.
Got it. Well, Joe, I don't see any other questions in the chat here. First of all, thank you for this kind of an approach that might be different than what folks might see for the rest of the day, but very informative. And thank you for a great conversation as well.
Yeah, good to talk to you again, Reggie. And you guys have a great day and enjoy the demos.
All right. Thank you, sir.